everyone, Jennifer here, back with another edition of TV Talk. It's Monday, and that means it's Gargoyles Day. And this week's episode was Mark of the Panther. The world travelers arrive in Africa, where they meet not only Elisa's mother, Diane, but also another child from Avalon, the trickster Anasey. Okay, things I liked about this episode. There was actually a lot I liked about this episode. Africa is among one of my favorite countries. I know it's got or continents, I should say continents. It's not a country, it's a continent. Because there's a lot of diverse wildlife in Africa. Granted, there's diverse wildlife anywhere you go, but Africa has a lot of diverse wildlife. They have the animals of the Serengeti, which we think of when we think of Africa: lions, elephants, giraffes, zebras. They have the mountain regions where there are gorillas and things. They have jungles with panthers and monkeys. And then Madagascar, which is part of Africa, has probably the most unique wildlife in the world. That's where lemurs are from, those cute little monkeys with I call it raccoon tails, because a lot of them, you think lemur, you think the ring-tailed lemur, which is the iconic image of the lemur. And they have those little, ring tails, which is where they get their names from. To me, it looks like a raccoon tail. A raccoon and a monkey tail put together, because it's kind of long and thin like a monkey tail, but it's got the rings like a raccoon. So they got a lot of points for that. Number 2, a big part of the show was about who they faced first off, which later on ties to Anasey, and if I'm mispronouncing the name, I apologize, is our poachers. So a good part of the show was about wildlife conservation, so it gets bonus points for that. Second off, we meet Elisa's mom, and we met her before in season 1. We met her in I think 2 episodes in season 1. The one where and I think it was her brother's keeper was the first time we saw her, and then I forget the episode, but it's where Elisa lets her family know what happened to Derek. We see her in that one as well. So we this isn't our first time seeing her. We knew who she was, when we first saw her, we're oh, that's Elisa's mom. But this is the first time we actually hear her name, which is Diane. Up until that point, I don't think she actually had a name. She was just either Mrs. Maza or Elisa's mom. And she's actually not only the first family member that Elisa let in on the secret of the gargoyle, she's also the first person Elisa let on about the secret of the gargoyles. Now, I'm sure some of you out there say, well, wait a minute, Derek knew about the gargoyles before his mom did, and Matt knew about the gargoyles before Elisa's mom did, and probably even before Derek did. It's yes, they did, but the thing is, Elisa didn't really come out. Well, I guess we can say that Matt was the first one she let in on the secret, but he kind of knew about them going in because he had seen the video. Derek, again, he knew about them from Xanatos. Xanatos told him about the gargoyles. Elisa didn't come out and tell him about the gargoyles. One could argue she kind of did with Matt, because she did introduce him to the gargoyles. But where with Derek, she really didn't. So one could argue that Matt was actually the first one she let know about the Gargoyles, even though she really didn't. If he hadn't seen the video of them, he wouldn't have known about them. So I like to say that her mom is actually literally the first one she lets know about the Gargoyles. Even though, like, really, and there's a little bit of a spoiler, they come in to help protect the village and Elisa and her mom from the poachers. She still kind of steps up and is like, yeah, these are my friends and this is what's going on. So it gets a little bit of bonus points for that as well. There's also a little bit of coming to terms with the situation they're in with Goliath and Angela as well. We know from I think it was Sanctuary. Or we at least know from Monsters. I don't know if we've done Sanctuary yet or not, so I'm not even going to touch on Sanctuary. But we know from Monsters that that Angela knows who her father is. She knows that Goliath is her father. And we do see at the very beginning of this episode that she's pushing it a little bit. She wants to acknowledge Goliath as her father, and she wants him to acknowledge her as his daughter. Where Goliath, having grown up, over 1,000 years ago, when, they had no way of knowing genetically who the parents were or not, and with the gargoyle eggs all hatching in one big group, it was hard to tell, whose child came out of which child belonged to who. So to make things easier on all the parents and on the hatchlings, it's just the entire clan adopted the hatchlings as their children, and the children referred to all the adults in the clan as their parents. Probably all the young adults and whatnot were probably referred to as older brothers and sisters, and then everyone within the hatching group was referred to as like a rookery brother and sister. And he wants to stick with that because it's tradition and whatnot, and it's the gargoyle way, while Angela wants to be treated special, which I get. I mean, she knows he's her dad. She wants the acknowledgement of that. So I do get it. And, she's, she does have multiple rookery brothers and sisters, and then 3, as you could look at it, like older brothers that she hasn't met yet. So, a lot of siblings there, even though not one of them is by blood. And, she just, coming from someone who does have a sibling, it's like, yeah, sometimes you do want special acknowledgement from your parents. So I completely get it. And what I find interesting is that they have, when they're each having a discussion with someone, like, outside of each other, Angela's having it with Elisa while they're separated from Goliath and Diana at the same time that Goliath is having the same discussion with Diana, which I find really interesting, because here Elisa wants the exact opposite that Angela wants. She does not want her mom really messing in her life to a degree. Because her mom wants more time, more explanation, more honesty, and this is like a direct quote from the show. And Elisa, as Goliath mentioned at the beginning of the episode, doesn't like to share her secrets all that much. And I think it's mostly the secrets about the Gargoyles, and I think it's because she knows from what they told her what happened to them, and this was from people who knew about them and that they saw as friends. And I think her keeping them a secret is kind of her way of protecting them. And also, as she stated, when Matt found out about them, it's like, her being the only human that they trusted made her feel special. And then, Goliath is talking to Diana, and he's saying, she wants to be that, Angela wants, special treatment, but he can't favor one hatchling or the other. And Diana's like, well, all children demand special treatment at some point, and she is the only hatchling with him, kind of thing. So, they do get kind of, father and daughter do get kind of advice from, like, human advice outside that. And I did like that. That was something they really didn't need to add in. I kind of figured when they were doing that, they were building up to something, and I don't want to give it away. Although some of you may have an idea now. But we'll discuss it later on, I promise. Finally, I know I was rattling on that, and I apologize, but it was kind of part of the episode. Anasey, or Anasey, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Again, if I'm mispronouncing it, I apologize. We see him in this episode. And Anasey, for those of you who are unaware, is a giant spider. It's a spider. From African folklore, and I don't know that much about him other than he is a trickster. Seems like a lot of the beings they're meeting are either tricksters or some kind of spirit, which I find very interesting. So he's a trickster, and there's this amazing story in this episode. I don't know if it's an actual African story. I'm assuming it was. But it's about the Panther Queen, where she apparently mocked Anasey, and he decided to teach her a lesson, and she was also very vain as well, and so he decided to teach her a lesson by spinning a spell into his web, because Anasey's a magical creature. He's a child of Oberon, and the spell turned the Panther Queen into a human, and he told her he would change her back if she built a great city in the shape of a spider web for him. And knowing she would need help, she married the chief of the local tribe. I can't remember the name. And they had many sons and daughters, and eventually over time the city was built. I can't remember the name of the city. And the Panther Queen went to Anasey once again and asked to be turned back into her old self, which he did, but he kind of got a final trick on her, as now she's lonely and she wants her children with her. So she asks him to turn her children into panthers. And he says he will, but he will only do so if she hunts for him, and he will give her one and only one of her children. So, of course, she hunts for him, and he got nice and big and fat and happy. And she put her mark, and this is where the title Mark of the Panther, on her oldest son, who happened to be Anasey's favorite subject, and he did not want to lose this person. So he told the prince about his deal with the Panther Queen. The prince did not want to be turned into a panther, so Anasey tells him he has to kill the Panther Queen. When he finds her and he looks into her eyes, he remembers his mother and realized that he chose her out, or she chose him out of love. And so when he couldn't go through with it, again, out of love, Anasey was forced to turn him into a panther as well, and then banished all the humans from his city. But then the joke's on him because he had no one to tend his needs. And I may not have gotten all the words right, but that's basically the story that was in there. And I loved the story. It was an amazing story. I know I cut some parts out of there just time-wise. If you want like the full story, I don't know if it's an actual African story or not, but you can watch the episode. So it's there, and then we have Anasey is in the episode as well, and the story plays into the episode because there are two people in there who bear the mark of the Panther, and were turned into Panthers, or not necessarily turned into Panthers, but become Panthers under emotional stress by Anasey. And that has to do, and that ties in there. So I did like that a lot. And how they tied the story in with what was going on in the episode. Because again, that was something that wasn't needed. They didn't need to have that story there. They could have just simply explained it when they figured out what happened. So I think it might actually be part of African folklore. I know Anasey is, but I think the actual story of the Panther Queen might be part of African folklore as well. Okay, things I didn't like about this episode. Honestly, there wasn't a lot I didn't like about this episode. Really, the only thing was really Anasey, because I do not like spiders. And he was a big spider. He was humongous. I think my car was smaller than he was, or smaller than he was. He was huge. So, you know, a big old spider, like, I did not like that. I understand why they had to make him a spider, because in all the other stories I've heard of Anasey, he is a spider, so they had to keep him a spider. I get it. But I just do not like spiders. So that was like the one thing about the episode I did not like, was the fact that there was a giant spider in it. Okay, feel free to check out my other videos. Okay, before I sign off, a few things I'd like to touch on. First off, a quick reminder on my comment rules. Okay, feel free to follow me or leave your comments and questions in the comment section. I do love to read those. Also, feel free to follow me on Wattpad, Tumblr, Instagram, and Twitter. I do have my name for those 4 sites right there on the screen, as well as the pictures I use for the icons. Please note that all pictures seen within this video do belong to their respective artists. I own absolutely nothing, and the links for any sites I mention will be in the description section. Okay, YouTube subscribers. Any of my videos that cannot be found on YouTube are on my Facebook page. Facebook friends, basically the same deal. Any of my videos that cannot be found on Facebook are on my YouTube channel. And to anyone who's interested, you can feel free to check out my Facebook group, Fanfic Corner. Okay, DreamWorks Dragons will be coming to an end in less than 2 weeks. So that means there will be an opening for a new TV Talk series on Sunday, and that also means that you guys get to vote and tell me what show you would like me to do a set of videos on. Your choices are Horseland, Outlaw Star, Dot Hack Sign, and Inuyasha. Voting is extremely simple. All you have to do is write and or like or love a positive comment on one of the 4 shows listed, and whichever one gets the most votes is the one I'll do a set of videos on. Please keep in mind that negative comments and dislikes do not count as votes. If Inuyasha is selected, I will be doing up through season 1 of the sequel as of the posting of this video. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can also go to the community section of my YouTube channel, and I have a poll going there as well. Voting will be until the 12th of November, and so that gives me a week to kind of go through and tally up all the votes and to see where it is, and if need be, make a decision if there's a tie. I will let you know if I need to push it back or any at all, though. You may vote in the comment section as many times as you wish. The one on my community thing, it's kind of a one-time deal, but I do repost it every week. So, you can vote every week as well on that one, but each poll is like a one-shot vote. But please keep in mind that in the event of a tie or no votes, I do have the final say. So far, the votes stand at Horseland in the lead with 8 votes, followed very closely behind by Inuyasha with 7. Outlaw Star is now on the board with 1 vote, and Dot Hack Sign still has a big old goose egg at 0 votes. You do have 1 week left, so be sure to get your votes in and make your voices known. Okay, please like and share if you're this video if you're watching on Facebook, or like and subscribe if you haven't already if you're watching on YouTube. As always, thank you for watching, and have a very nice day.